Hey, Chris, obviously we were streaming the other day and we got a spicy topic. So what's on the board? What's our topic today?
Well, we were going to be talking about new player experience, but earthquake! Oh, there's news. News, guys. Ishgardian restoration.
Yeah.
What is going on with Ishgardian restoration? I am seeing claims on the forums. I don't have the ability to verify this, but of people playing as much as 16 hours a day and not finishing in that. I believe it's top 12 to get rewards on your server.
Yeah.
And it's because they're doing the math and they're saying if you catch this fish every 26 seconds or whatever if we do this every 26 seconds, you do this many times per hour, you never take a break, you never pee, you never get a glass of water, this is the theoretical maximum number of points you can achieve per day. And there are people like at or sometimes even above that number, which means they're like trimming global cooldowns, like they're literally perfect for 24 hours straight, which does beg the question, how are they getting that done?
And so obviously this leads to the concept of cheating, account sharing, and botting. And so we've actually been provided some, I would say evidence, but there is some loose connection. We've also seen some forum posts. And so this is us kind of getting and sitting with you guys, giving you guys our thoughts regarding account sharing, regarding botting, and regarding when you even factor in the concept of streamers, people who do get to play for 12 to 16 hours and trying to compete for these top 12 slots, as well as some additional thoughts on Ishgardian restoration. This is a spicy, meaty subject, so we'll do our best to be able to make sure all sides are represented. As always, Chris, let's start with you. What are your thoughts?
So TLDR, cheating is wrong, right?
Yes.
It's that obvious. And so we talked about it a little on stream and everybody goes, it's black and white. But black and white assumes that every case is all the way black or all the way right, and that there's no middle ground. And so like the best analogy for this for me is traffic laws.
Okay.
So in our state, traffic laws range from speed limits to not driving under the influence, to not driving while texting, to actually accelerating through a yellow, which is one a lot of people don't do, to using your turn signal. I believe it's 150 feet prior to changing lanes or turning, something most people aren't using their signals at all. Having your headlights on while your windshield wipers are on, making you easier to see when it's raining or fog. It's a huge spectrum, and the punishment for breaking any one of these can range wildly. And doing several of them in a row can increase that punishment to the point where you lose your license, where you spend time in jail. And in a place like Texas where everything's really far apart, either one of those can make it very hard to seek employment. It can utterly just trash your life.
Okay.
When you meet somebody that's been prohibited, it's not, oh, you lost your right. It's, wow, what did you do? Because we are very careful to take those things away here because it really does make a difference in your lifestyle.
Okay.
So when we look at Square, they're very, very strict on a lot of these things. You can get banned for making fun of somebody on a stream that doesn't even know you're making fun of them, especially if it results in anybody in your community going and mocking them in game. If somebody knows that person's name and they go send them mail or emote on them or whatever, then that can all come back to you, and you can get banned for that. We've seen it happen
twice. Yeah.
Two that I know of. I think it had happened before that. So like it's definitely happening. So it seems black and white, but much like the fact that I do sometimes exceed the speed limit, there's probably times that I've forgotten to use a turn signal and things like that. I don't immediately think my car should be taken away and I should be tossed in jail for that. So when we say cheating in a game, it's defined by terms of service. Okay. That's the definition. They set the rules.
So we've got really kind of two, major cases of accusations here. When it comes down to it, you have account sharing and then you have botting. Let's start with botting because I think universally we can all agree, like as a part of this multiplayer game, the terms of service are insanely clear. Don't use a bot. If you are botting, you're affecting the game in like you're impacting us, even if we don't actively see that effect. And that's one of the aspects that we can see it. Botting in and of itself is wrong. I think everybody can sit down and say, yes. Do people bot in this game? Absolutely. Yes. We've covered it when it comes to housing. People are going to extreme measures using bots to try and get a house in this game.
Right.
People are botting for this, and we've seen, and that's what's actually been sent over to us for certain players. We're not exposing anybody here. I do, if you're coming here like, who was it? I'll let you guys go do your own research on that. But botting in this case, where they've been on botting discords, they've been, talking about that, and then you see them clearly within the top 12
especially
rankings.
when it's to take something away from somebody else,
Right.
right? Within the spectrum, right? Within
Right.
like the degrees of getting charged with murder, within the degrees of botting.
So
There are people who bought
Yeah.
to go, I just want to gather a lot of this material so I can level my crafters. That to me is not nearly as egregious as somebody taking a house from somebody who's taking the day off work and then still doesn't get one because the bot wins. Or in this case, literally taking a spot on the leaderboard in the Ishgardian Restoration because that player didn't do anything. They were competing. It's somebody competing against a script, and that's just not fair.
And I look at it like this, the analogy that I kept coming up. You were looking at the traffic, and obviously that kind of falls into the kind of what's the degree of punishment towards the degree of crime, right? And not every like, oh no, you went 1 mile over, we're not throwing you in jail. Okay, we have to have some level, right response measures to whatever the infringement is. I look at this obviously in the terms of like baseball, right? There was a time in baseball when everybody was like pretty much roiding up so that they could then compete at this level. So, the accusation was all these hitters, which were getting all these home runs. But in order for pitchers to be able to somewhat even compete in that scale, they started roiding up. And eventually, like you look at kind of this period of history of baseball where everybody was cheating. And I think, in my personal opinion, and I stand by this today, they should never have their name in history of baseball whatsoever. Let us forget about that period. Let us shame that period in a way that nobody else is thinking, this is a really good idea. Because my concern when it comes to botting and the fact that people have placed, we'll see if there's any actions taken upon these individuals. That's something that time will only tell because there has to be an investigation from Square's perspective. But at the end of the day, like if there is no action and the only option to compete is now to bot, then all of a sudden it's like, to play on an even playing field, everybody has to start breaking terms of service to be able to have some form of response, some measure of
you just
ability.
Investigate the top 12, or like, do you care if AA boys are roiding up, or do you just investigate the Barry Bonds of the world?
I think essentially you investigate everybody, and then ideally try to.
And how do we pay for that?
Well, that's coming out of all of our subscription fees because that's the Square Enix would have to create if they don't have that ability to detect that already. That's something that would have to be detectable and then enforceable in a public way, so that way everybody's like, no, because like that's one of the things. It was a great. If y'all ever read the book, World War Z, they brought back public shaming because it made no sense to imprison people, like to have like these extreme punishments because they had this other bigger crisis on their hands, and it's like in a way like shaming somebody like from the game, like here's, ladies and gentlemen, here are your cheaters, and then like they like maybe they don't get banned, but maybe there's like
on their own leaderboard.
Yeah, here's the cheater board or like something of that nature, so that it's like,
wow, you got 34th and you were cheating.
Ooh,
you're not even good at cheating.
You're not even good at cheating.
Like
Anyway, so I look at it from that perspective that it's
you
like
get the item, but it can't be glamored.
It can't be glamour, or it's just like a symbol by their name, kind of like, oh, boo. It's like, and then they're just like,
a dead sprout for 45 days.
Oh, that'd be cool. Anyway, so that's kind of what I look at it, because we could definitely agree that botting is bad. But do you want to have any other thoughts on botting before we kind of dive into the account sharing?
No, and if I pull up terms of service, it's let's define all the terms and your limited ownership and what that means, and then within things you can and can't do, section 2.1, cheating and botting. It's the first thing.
1 second.
It's half a page in, so it's defined as you may not create or use any unauthorized cheats, bots, automation software, hacks, mods, or any unauthorized software or hardware designed to modify in gameplay. In addition, you may not take advantage of the game system bugs and exploits during gameplay. So like that's the very first thing. No botting, no exploiting systems that are not intended to work that way.
Right.
The second thing, just for anybody interested, is real money trading, farming, and power leveling. So basically you can't be offering to do something for somebody for money. So that naturally kind of caveats us into our second group, people that are account sharing, which when we jump down to, that's actually the first thing in section 3, sharing account information. And because every game defines this a little bit different, I'm going to read this one because I was familiar with WoWs because it's come up a lot when you talk about multi-boxers. You may not share your account login information, such as your ID or password, with anyone except your legal guardian, your minor child, or Square Enix. That's what it's defined as. It goes on to explain that a little more, but basically it's kids and a single parent. That is not spouses, that is not roommates, that is not a brother once you guys are both over the age, because up until then you would have technically been under your parents' account because it would have been their credit card. As soon as it can move to one of your credit cards, it technically would need to split off.
So as long as I don't share my account with Julie, but I can get my kids farming on this, and I can section them in like 6-hour chunks as a part of their homework assignment for their dad. Keep pressing this button.
Maybe, but if you're rewarding them in any way, I think it could quickly become you may not play the game for the purpose of acquiring virtual items or advancement in game on behalf of a third party, or for the purpose of selling them for real money or anything like that. So if you're paying your children, it might actually still cross that line.
I think that's the fact that they're my children. I don't have to pay them.
Well, this is why you can't pay them. I would pay you. It's against the rules.
It's against the rules. Sorry.
So I don't know on that, but people account sharing. So that is technically cheating as well, right? You work really hard. You get off work every day. You play this game until you can't anymore. You fall asleep. You wake up early in the morning. You down some energy drinks and coffee, and you play until you need to leave for work, and you still don't finish in the top 12 on your server. And it's because there are people that are sharing their account info. That could feel very frustrating. And so I don't think this one's nearly as bad as botting in my mind, because I think the justification for breaking this rule, much in the same way as like when it's an open highway and it's just you and you want to do 5 over, it doesn't really bother me as long as you're not putting anybody else in danger. That's just my personal take on that. Is absolutely against the rules. And if you get pulled over for it, I would absolutely pay my ticket if I got pulled over for that. But account sharing, how else do you beat these people that can take 16 hours a day, whether they're professional streamers or they're retired or they're on school break? If you want to place top 12 and I want to place top 12 and we both work full-time jobs and I don't care about glamour, but you do, we both just like crafting, us sharing your account to see if we can get your account into the top 12 doesn't necessarily bother me nearly as bad as botting, because it is still real players playing on real accounts. We both have a real subscription, a real purchase. And we're just trying to keep up with people that have real life unfair advantages over us.
The question that I have is like, how could we detect that? Like from a technological perspective, because there's
IP addresses.
Well, we play in the cloud. We play on Shadow PC. That IP address could change.
Against the rules?
I don't believe so, but it might be.
It is for a while.
It is for a while.
I'm not saying people don't do it, but then they could just get you that way.
Well, you have that, but then you have, with more cloud gaming coming into play, it's like, here's the account. Like at the end of the day, it's like, all right, you could try to detect it, but there's still also an argument of like, I'd move. Like I went to another location. I decided to go from this coffee house to this coffee house, etc. It's like, I'm just saying, like the enforcement, the ability to detect something of that nature, I think would be very costly. There would have to be some kind of like tribunal in terms of like, okay, like here's the evidence that's presented. We have to make a weigh-in on decision. And ultimately, I don't think that boils down to something that anybody's really worth investing that kind of time, because there would be some really good examples. There would be some very public examples of what happened. Like I literally took 2 weeks off of work, and I would do 24-hour streams. We've seen people do 24-hour streams, and whether they're a streamer or not, like we know, even in the world of 11, some like they would do 48 hours. Like they would just play as a part of this. And yeah, like so at some point, like you can't do it based off of time. You can't. I think IP would be kind of iffy because IP addresses can change, and so okay, there you go.
You could simply not do a top 12. You could simply say, here's the daily cap. This is the most you can get in a day. Set it at like 5 hours worth of play. And then it just softens everything for everybody. But if you're going to really isolate the best, you have to be willing to leave the rules open enough that you do catch the people who are playing legitimate. They're just doing something insane.
I would argue the opposite. I think instead of reducing leaderboards, we need more leaderboards. I think there should be a leaderboard among you and your friends, like on your friends list. I think there should be a leaderboard for your free company. I think there should be a leaderboard that's weekly. I think there should be a leaderboard that's monthly. I think there should be a leaderboard like for all these different things. And then in this case where it expires, it's like there should be other things to follow that up. And so that if somebody is aka no lifing this, at some point you're physically going to have to go sleep, but it's okay because you've already kind of like, the fact is that it has been set, it's done right now, and there's not something else to kind of compete as a part of this. I think that just shows that I would love to see more leaderboards and more of the content, and then also have it to where like at some point, like, yeah, maybe I don't care about being where I place in the world, but where do I place amongst my friends? you know, like for like if it was Chris and I, like,
Yeah.
oh man, Chris, like I'm 5,000th in the world because I just kind of dabbled in it, but I'm number 1 on the list, number 2, sucker. You know, like I think that brings in the ability that, and then you can maybe tie some rewards to that as well. It's
a lot of real life things to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how like the CrossFit games works, right? You can participate in the open against everybody in the world, and it's like, yeah, I got 5,000th. That's awesome, right? And then they break it down by age group, and they break it down by gender, and they break it down by all these things, so that you can say like, who am I really competing against?
Right.
Because I know that if Heal Me Harry and Mr. Happy are duking it out for the number 1 spot, that I can't keep up with people that play 10 hours a day and are experts on this game and have any resources from their community. If they're short anything, it's going to be given to them. You know, and that's not to insult what they're doing. I don't know. Maybe you should have a streamer board. Like,
that's an idea.
What if you gave your creators basically a validation? They can opt in, they can get better rewards, but they have to do something nuts.
That's
because
not a bad idea.
Isn't designed for them anyway.
Right. And that's the thing, is like, who is... I look at this.
You and I have done some crazy play sessions.
Agreed. Like, and you know, we're definitely, we fall into that on occasion. We didn't like actively jump into this competition because it's like we've got a lot of stuff going on right now. It's like, well, you know, maybe next time. I don't know. Like that's, I like.
It would actually encourage me more. If I was on like a list of just 20, I would try to. It's like, well, at least I can beat Larry.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You know, especially in this.
He hasn't been playing much because he's like working and providing for his family.
Jeez.
I could totally take him on.
What a human being. I think essentially, like, again, I do lean into the aspect of more leaderboards, not less, more of these kind of systems, not less. I think essentially, though, there is that concept, though, of the incentive and the limited time ability that does drive people to make those decisions because there is that scarcity of it. And so then this brings up the question, though, as a multiplayer game, you know, hopefully Square Enix can look at this, can kind of try to address these core issues that figures out how to handle the cheating aspect, because essentially what you're going to do is you will drive people either away from this game or to become cheaters themselves. Like if their end game, if they're like winning, you know, like what they want is they want that title, that is what they're going to do, and they set up time to do it, and then they lose because somebody is cheating. They're either going to walk away from this game, which is bad, or they're going to start cheating themselves, which is also bad. Like, you're not giving players, you know, recourse. And that's my concern. And that's when this was brought up to us on stream. I was like, we got to sit down and talk about this because there are so many layers to it, especially when you bring up the concept of streaming. You know, you go to work, you go have a job, like, all of a sudden you're like, well, I can't compete against the streamers and the botters and the cheaters. And not that those are all three the same thing, because the streamer just has more time.
People, and you don't place top 12.
Right.
If there's 2 cheaters, 2 botters, and 8 streamers on your server, you're screwed. Or even just 6 streamers and 2 people that play a lot. Maybe they're kids that are being homeschooled right now and they knock their stuff out for the day, and their parents are like, just don't bother me. I'm trying to get work done. We did all your class stuff in the morning. You're really bright. You got it all done. Go play whatever you want in your room. And they're like, I'm gonna go do this Ishgardian restoration thing, Mom. I'm maxing out in the economy. I'm beating these people. Great, honey. Just go do it. Like, my parents loved MMOs for the fact that if it was raining outside in the middle of the summer day, they could just leave us to 3 pile over a computer and argue over whose turn it was back in vanilla WoW.
Yeah. Whew. Well, yeah, and you guys all shared an account. Because that's what you could afford.
Because we were minors. Yeah, it was my mom's credit card.
Yeah, exactly.
And she just docked it from our allowance.
Yeah, it's so fascinating.
I mean, it didn't come out until I was in high school, but yeah, I didn't have that much money.
Yeah,
I was broke.
Gas
was like 80 cents, and I still couldn't afford it.
Yeah, it's like, all right. I guess essentially the best way to take this at this point is to really kind of turn the question over to you guys. What do you think? What would be an adequate response by Square Enix? What would be your solution to this problem? Do you like the idea of more leaderboards, not less? Like, any and all ideas, obviously, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And especially speaking of kind of y'all's thoughts.
Are there any breakdowns, right? Like, is it just cheating? And anybody that breaks this rule even slightly, even once, hey, I got to go to the bathroom. Will you just keep hitting this macro for me? Does that person to have their entire account deleted? Are they identical to the person that's botted their way to like perfection every day for the last week? Are those identical cases?
Yeah, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Speaking of that, though, as well, one idea that did bubble up, I'd love to have y'all's thoughts on it. It's not for this video, but on the free-to-play video, some people suggested that they should open up the game for holidays to allow people to log in and play on holidays. And obviously, there's a lot of holidays across the world that don't necessarily all line up. I thought that was a really interesting idea, so thank y'all for suggesting it. Maybe we'll have a another follow-up to that video. We'll probably put a little topic on there, community feedback on the wheel for a past video, so we'll think about that. This Tuesday coming up, guys, we'll be talking about the new player experience on Final Fantasy XIV, so tune in for that. And then as well, let us know if you got topics that you'd like us to talk about in the comments so we can get it added to the wheel. Chris, you got anything, any final thoughts you want to say before you wrap it up for us?
No, I think that's it. The wheel's been fun. The engagement with you guys has been awesome. I do want to say thank you to everybody that went over and hit subscribe on Game Club. We made it to 1,000. That's awesome. It opens up. That's the last line that YouTube draws. Everything after that is about getting like play buttons and stuff, and that's way bigger than us. So that's the last thing where you get every feature. We can now slam it with 9,000 mid rolls, which is all we've been waiting for. It finally opens up every feature on the back end, and we really appreciate you guys making that possible.
All right, guys. For Work to Game, my name's Brian.
My name's Chris.
Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Take care.
This video is sponsored by me, Ginger Prime. Hopefully you'll check out my podcast channel, Ginger Gaming Radio, which we have lots of guests, lots of great conversations, and even more highlights. Links are in the description below. Let me know what you think. Thanks.